Thank you for inviting me, and it's more important devoting so much time and energy to such an important topic and to placing it center stage in the discussion. We have so many important things in Jewish education that often not everything gets its proper attention, and Yishar Gadol for actually coming and prioritizing ethical issues as a basic element of the educational and spiritual focus. Just one thing. I was asked to give sources for some self-learning. I will not necessarily base the lecture upon the sources in that sequence. Now, this is not a source sheet for the lecture itself. Obviously, I will use some of these sources, but there are a few others that will be important and not over here. So, just this is not quite a guided map to what I'll be saying exactly. Everything I'll be in the final disclaimer. I won't be saying anything extraordinary or anything novel. Everything I'm saying, I think, is plain and simple. Mesilat Yesharim, which is maybe the classic Musar Sefer, he announced at the outset of the book that all he's doing is repeating the most plain and simple truths, but sometimes they have to be repeated as well. So I feel the same thing. I'm not saying anything, no great chidushim. You have to bring me for Eretz Yisrael for all this, but nevertheless, I'll do what I'm tasked with doing. First of all, it's clear that ethics is a crucial and essential element of Avodat Hashem. If you want, Pirkei Avot talks about Shlosha Dvarim Ha'olam Omed, the world stands on three pillars: Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim. Torah, devotion to the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and Chesed. In the broader sense, not only Chesed, but also ethics in general. Try to illustrate this by a few basic sources. The Rambam positions the mitzvah of ethical behavior, which by him is subsumed under the category of the Halacha Bidrachav. You follow God's footsteps, imitates your day. The Rambam positions this as mitzvah number 8. And here a comment is important. The Rambam organized mitzvot in Sefer Mitzvot not based upon the sequence in the Torah, like Sefer Chinuch, for instance, did. Sefer Chinuch, everything's chronological. Pashat Shavua, you get all the mitzvot. The Rambam organized them in different groups, and the exact organization is very enigmatic, but the broad outline is pretty clear. I mean, the Rambam has sections and groups of mitzvot which are organized together. All the mitzvot which deal with Beis HaMikdash. All the mitzvot which deal with the Chagim. All the mitzvot that deal with the judiciary, and so on and so forth. And the Rambam placed at the beginning of Sefer Mitzvot, because it's the cardinal mitzvot. The first 9 are essentially what he believes are the basics of Judaism. Begins with belief in God, Yichud Hashem, unity of God, Avat Hashem, Yirat Hashem, and then he has this number 8, which he damod bidrachav, to imitate the Kadosh Baruch Hu, Valachta bidrachav, to follow in his footsteps. And you have this here with the Rambam, following the Gemara. The Rambam has mitzvah shminit shesran lidamot bo yit'ala, and the 8th mitzvah is to follow in his footsteps. I emphasize this because he places it to tell you this is a cardinal basic value in Judaism. The same is true of the conclusion of Moreh Nevuchim. The Rambam devotes the concluding sentences, the last paragraphs of Moreh Nevuchim, to highlight the pasuk in Yirmiyahu. The pasuk in Yirmiyahu says, "Ani talech." It's in the Haftarah Tisha B'av, of course. "Ani talech hacham b'chochmato, ayitel gibor gvurato, ayitel ashir b'oshro, ki im bezot mitalel amitalel, haskel v'yado oti, ki ani Hashem aseh chesed tzedakah u'mishpat ba'aretz, ki lo lechafatzti num Hashem." Right? You shouldn't. Don't praise. A human being should not praise himself for his bravery, for his courage, for his wealth, or his wisdom, but rather for his knowledge of God. And what's the knowledge? That the Kadosh Baruch Hu oseh chesed, tzedakah, mishpat ba'aretz. He does chesed, tzedakah, however we'll interpret that, and mishpat, justice, va'aretz. Now, the exact interpretation of the Rambam is the subject of great debate, and I will not enter into that at all. But for our purposes, his exact meaning is not crucial. What is crucial is that when he finishes the entire Mor Nevuchim, he feels it crucial to, he places this pasuk, that knowledge of God is not just abstract knowledge, but it's the knowledge of how he works in the world, meaning oseh chesed tzedakah mishpat ba'aretz, that he cares for the world, and once more, without getting into the exact interpretation, there's an expectation that we do this as well. And the Rambam emphasizes, that he does emphasize, the pasuk emphasizes ba'aretz, not in the abstract, but rather he works within the world. Oseh chesed tzedakah mishpat ba'aretz, because Baruch Hu desires, be'elech chafatzti, that men work to, that you ensure that justice and charity are done in the world here that we live in. And of course, a point that the Rambam also is very constantly emphasized. We don't need the Rambam for this. Let's go back. Moshe Rabbeinu approaches the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and he requests that Kadosh Baruch Hu reveal himself to him. After Chet HaEgel, Moshe goes to Kadosh Baruch Hu takes Moshe, and after Moshe's self-sacrifice, after Moshe's Mesirat Nefesh Yisrael, so Moshe Rabbeinu and Kadosh Baruch Hu have this discussion, Kaviyachal, and Moshe Rabbeinu says to Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hareini na'et kvodecha, show me, display a glory. And then, Hodi'eni na'et drachecha, tell me your works. How do you work, and how do you, what are your actions and your deeds? And the first one, broadly speaking, is denied. Because Baruch Hu says to him, Irani Hadam V'cha. You can only see reflection, you can only see backwards, you can only see what the effect, the after effects. But he does grant him, Hodi'eni na'et drachecha. And I was essentially saying to him, what man should really view is Darchei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which are what? Hashem, Kel, Rachum V'chanun, Erech Apayim, etc. All the attributes of mercy, in which Kadosh Baruch Hu has compassion on human beings. This is what, at the ultimate point, this is essentially is the ultimate meaning of man and God in the Torah and in history. The ultimate meaning for the unique individual is, he's told, it's revealed him, Kel, Rachum V'chanun, Erech Apayim, etc. So it's clearly a basic, it's a basic value. We'll discuss this a bit more later on. That what Kadosh Baruch Hu expects of us is not only that we should be ethical, we should see this as a central and cardinal value of our religious life, that we should see our relationship to Him as being expressed through v'halachta bidrachav, and our knowledge of Him should be through kel rachum v'chanun, erech apayim, v'rav chesed v'emet. Now I was asked to address, not at the place of ethics per se, but the ethical obligation to non-Jews or Universalism, and to discuss this. And yes, I think we have to begin with two observations. Number one is, Tanakh emphasizes in many places the fact that both God and man have to take responsibility, not only for Am Yisrael, but for the world at large. It begins, of course, with Avram Avinu. And Avram Avinu is a paradigm of chesed. The Torah tells us that Kadosh Baruch Hu chose Avram, ki yeda'ativ. I chose, I gave him a destiny, ki yeda'ativ, miman asher yitzav, either because or in order to, yitzavet banav, to educate banav u'beitoch harav, to educate his family and his descendants, v'shamru derech Hashem asot tzedakah u'mishpat, that they will educate people to follow tzedakah and mishpat, the same attributes that the Rambam quotes in the pasuk in Yirmiyahu. that doing justice and treating people ethically is the essence of why Avram Avinu was chosen. And now this is told us when, as Avram Avinu is about to pray for Sodom. Sodom are corrupt, and Avram knows this, and Sodom are people who are totally corrupt. Nevertheless, Avram Avinu feels it's his mission to intercede for them. And begins this long plea, and he recognizes that at some points he may be annoying the Kadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak. But Avram goes and he pleads and pleads and pleads that Kadosh Baruch Hu should rescue Sodom. Not only that, but Avram also claims, he basically makes the moral, ethical claim to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And Avram basically says, I want to hold up the Kadosh Baruch Hu to an ethical standard. Chalila lecha לעשות כדבר הזה, להעמיד כצדיק ורשע וכצדיק ורשע, חלילה lecha שופט כל הארץ לא יעשה משפט. Avram said to Kadosh Baruch Hu, how can you not do justice? How can you be unjust? How can you have the innocent perish together with the guilty? It's impossible. And basically, it's telling Kadosh Baruch Hu, I'm holding you up to a moral standard because Kadosh Baruch Hu by definition is immoral, and there's this natural morality where Avram Avinu can come and hold up against the Kadosh Baruch Hu himself. And it's a crucial pasuk. In other words, he's really saying there's such a thing as natural morality, which obligates all, including the Kadosh Baruch Hu himself. If we move on from Avram Avinu, we read every Yom Kippur. It's one of the highlights of the day. We read Sefer Yonah. Sefer Yonah begins, Yonah the Navi is sent out to warn the people of Nineveh, who are considered powerful and evil. They're powerful, politically powerful. It's a large metropolis, a hub of universal life. And he's sent to warn them of their impending fate because they're acting unethically. But his responsibility, because Baruch Hu delegates to Yonah to go and warn these goyim, New York, London, Paris. Yonah goes to Nineveh to warn them because their fate matters, and his responsibility towards their spiritual well-being, which will then translate, of course, into their physical destruction if they are not, if they don't heed his calls and they remain corrupt. Yonah tries to escape. There are various interpretations. One of them is exactly because of that. He did not consider them worthy of his attention. There are different interpretations why he wanted to. One of them, at least, is that Yonah really felt his role, his mission as a Navi is to Am Yisrael, and he doesn't want to go to Nineveh, or that going to Nineveh reflects poorly on Am Yisrael. But at the end of the Sefer, after Yonah goes and they do tshuva, more sincere or less sincere, but they do tshuva, something happens. So we go to the conclusion of Sefer Yonah. So of course, because Baruch and Yonah have this discussion in which, now Yonah of course was against rescuing Nineveh. I don't think because they were going necessarily. I think the basic thrust of the Sefer is, do you accept partial, incomplete tshuva? Do you accept tshuva under distress? People who return to Kadosh Baruch Hu not because they undergo a deep spiritual process, rather they are afraid. They want to save their skins. Is that enough? Yonah belittles this, and Yonah does not appreciate this. But nevertheless, whatever his reasons are, right at the beginning of the book, so he saves these malachim, sailors, who are not only not spiritual, Chazal consider them at least to be goyim as well. And there's a medrash that says that after they all went and they were Megayer after the story, at the moment we won't interpret Sefer Yonah, but the point is that they were goyim, Nineveh are goyim, and then when Yonah gets upset and has Rachmanis upon himself towards the end of the book, so what the Kodesh Baruch Hu say to him? The Kodesh Baruch Hu tells him powerfully that V'yomer Hashem, atach chasta kikayon asher lo amalta bo. Right, this bush that's providing you with some kind of shade and some kind of relief from the desert heat. Atach chasta kikayon asher lo amalta bo gidalto. Should be not that, it's a bush. Sooner or later it's going to die out. Ani lo chusam ninvei ha'ir ha'gedolah. How can I not have compassion? It's like a lachus. I mean, this compassion, even the Kodesh Baruch Hu recognizes maybe they're not the greatest people in the world, and maybe their tshuva is not too convincing. Nevertheless, there are hundreds of thousands of people living in Nineveh. Baruch Hu says, like, essentially, the most important passage in Tanakh regarding this issue is this: that you have compassion on all humanity, even if, once more, they're corrupt and evil and powerful, even if their tshuva is not exactly too impressive, and their tshuva is, according to one opinion, Chazal, tshuva shemimiyut, they cheated in their tshuva. But nevertheless, you take into account, how can you not have so much compassion on so many human beings? And as I said before, it is not coincidental that we read this in Yom Kippur, because part of the message is, if we expect for the Kodesh Baruch Hu to have compassion upon us, if we expect Him to be forgiving towards us, we expect Him to be to accept our tshuva, and despite our flaws, right? In the morning, or I'll add like this: in the morning, Yom Kippur, we lay in Torah, which also focuses upon the ethical. But there it's very inspiring. It assumes that you're doing all the right things, you have compassion upon Anim, you're taking poor people, you clothe them, you feed them, you feel their pain. You are, in the morning we come and say, Kodesh Baruch Hu, if we treat people properly, if we have compassion about fellow human beings and we do it the right way, and there it's talking about Jews, so then you should have Rahmanas upon us. In the afternoon, as the day approaches its close, as we become more desperate, we say, even if we're imperfect, even if we don't, our tshuva is not so great, our tshuva is more of a crisis, our tshuva is not exactly thorough, and nevertheless, we say, the message of Sefer Yonah, because Baruch Hu has compassion upon Nineveh, He should have upon us, and we place this whole idea of how the Kodesh Baruch Hu should treat us in the center. But of course, it obligates us as well, because we said before, the whole point is we have to follow His footsteps. V'halachta bidrachav. And then Tehillim, and the rest of the Tanakh emphasizes how Kodesh Baruch Hu constantly is listening to the pleas of Goyim as well as Jews. And if you read Ashrei, which I have to mention is obviously a text that we repeat and we position it as a major element of davening, but Ashrei talks to constantly about the universal. Chanun v'rachum Hashem, erech apayim v'gdol chesed. Once we talk about Kodesh Baruch Hu's compassion, His rachamim, His willingness to bear and to accept human imperfection. Tov Hashem lakol, to everybody. Everybody here means goyim as well. V'rachamav kol masav, all the created beings. Certainly means humans. You want to expand it to animals as well, but that's in the end of Yonah. But certainly to human beings. Du Hashem kol maasecha. Everyone therefore will thank you and praise you. I'm skipping here a bit. Lo dia li v'nei ha'adam gevurotav. because Baruch Hu displays to all human beings his power and his willingness to support them and provide for them. Malchutcha, Malchut, Kol Olamim, all the worlds and everyone within all these worlds. Samech Hashem L'chol HaNoflim, all the people who fall, who are weak, who falter. V'zokei V'chol HaKfufim, all the people who are bent over and weak and have all kinds of health issues and other issues. Einei Chol, right? Look, notice the concept is Kol, mean everybody. The eyes of everyone are upon you. Potech et yadecha masbiah lechol chai ratzon, because Baruch Hu gives food and sustenance to all human beings. Tzadik Hashem b'chol dirachav v'chol masav, kol Hashem l'chol korav. The word kol appears here in count, but probably 10, 12 times. And the point is, the constant point is that everyone, take another pasuk, which purposely taking pasukim, which are positioned in the central places in davening. So we mentioned Yonah from the Yom Kippur, Ashrei from daily. Take a pasuk, Shomea Tfilah Adecha Kol Basar Yavo. Because Baruch Hu hears our pleas, hears our davening. Adecha, upon you, Kol Basar, all flesh will come. This is a pasuk we begin all the pasukim in Slichos, right? The opening passage of Slichos begins with this pasuk. Shemeh Tfilah Adecha Kol Basar Yavo. Once more, at the very least, it means all human beings. Kol Basar, all of flesh approaches you, and the other important texts, we read, we conclude Musaf and Rosh Hashanah, which of course is a universal day, and I didn't mention this before, but Rosh Hashanah emphasizes the universal, not only how God cares for all human beings, but his expectation that there should be recognition from them to him, or meaning their spiritual well-being also matters, is whether or not they read this Kodesh Baruch Hu matters. And I won't quote now all of the Shemona Esrei of Rosh Hashanah, but it makes clear that all of humankind, so on and so forth, all the passages there are quite clear. We also mention because Baruch Hu bring everyone to Beit HaMikdash. Ki veiti beit tefillah yikarei l'chol ha'amim. Beis HaMikdash is a place where all goyim, all nations come to pray because Baruch Hu, they should supply their needs. And of course, this is what Shlomo HaMelech says explicitly when he dedicates Beis HaMikdash. Shlomo there presents Beis HaMikdash as a place whose primary point is man's encountering Kodesh Baruch Hu. And the crucial element of that encounter is tefillah, is praying. And he gives various examples there, people in distress, and all kinds of examples. And after he talks about Jews who come to approach Kodesh Baruch Hu for various forms of problems and distress that they have, v'gam el hanochri shalom chai Yisrael, even to the non-Jews, it's said here explicitly. Gam el hanochri shalom chai Yisrael, the non-Jew will come, ubam el eretz rechokah, from a faraway country. L'man shemecha, he comes for the sake of your name, for the glory of your name. Ki yishmu et shemcha gadol, they hear your power and your omnipotence. Ata tishma hashamayim, and you respond to their pleas. Kichol ve'asita, and you'll do and provide. Kichol asher yikra lecha hanuchri, you will give the goyim all that they request. The man yedu kol me'aretz, all should recognize your shimcha v'irautcha kemcha Yisrael, that the goyim should be able to recognize and be in touch with Kodesh Baruch Hu the same way Am Yisrael is. And just to conclude this, there's a whole literature, and I will not quote most of it, that talks about the obligation of goyim to perform their mitzvot. But what's more important for us at the moment is the obligation of Jews or their responsibility to to ensure and to enable and to enforce, according to many opinions, that Goyim's performance of mitzvot. The Rambam, who's an extremist, no doubt, the Rambam claims that you can actually coerce every single human being to observe the 7 of the mitzvot of Bnei Noach, and if not, you can punish him harshly. For our purposes now, I don't want to talk about how Goyim are expected to perform mitzvot, but the fact that your responsibility to their spiritual well-being is part of the same idea. Their well-being, be it physical or spiritual, is your responsibility. And if you take spirituality seriously, the way the Rambam certainly did, so you not only care about providing them with food and with clothing, you also care about making sure that they're spiritually in the proper place. And then the Rambam really thinks that you have to go and use all the power of the state to coerce them to also observe the mitzvot that are incumbent upon them. Okay, having said all this, I can conclude, and Elkin will be very happy with the presentation, not with the conclusion after half an hour. But, of course, there's another side to all this. Many mitzvot, which have at their focus assistance, responsibility, you're exempt from Goyim. I'll take some classic examples. Hashavat Aveidah. There's someone loses an object, you're obligated to return it to him, not to a Goy, only to a Jew. Another example, an example which of course in the Middle Ages was prominent, the mitzvah of ribis, of not taking interest on a loan. You can take from a Goy whatever you want, not from a Jew. You have to give a Jew an interest-free loan, but for a Goy you can charge market rates or more. There's and what's more, Jews are treated to preferential treatment. Take another example, Shmitat Ksafim. Once every 7 years, you basically have to forgive all debt. You have to, you cannot collect it. For 7 years, you have, we absolve all debts, all the debts of a person are forgiven. Once more, only for Jews. And the Psukim emphasize, for instance, by Ribit, you can go and charge the Goyim, but not the Jews. You can go and charge, you can go and collect aggressively your debts. You can go and charge interest. The pasuk goes out of his way, go and collect from the Goyim, not from the Jews. Go and chase your debts. And once more, there can be many other examples which in Halacha you see a discrepancy between a Jew and a Goy. And the obvious question is, first of all, why should this be? And secondly, how do we reconcile this with all the previous statements? So let me, in order to do this, I think I have to come and try to present a theory of B'chirat Yisrael. Why? What is the universal element, and what is, and why do we? What do you mean when we said that because Baruch Hu chose us? And that we're the chosen people. So here I put on this source sheet one pasuk in Sefer Shemot, and what's a very nice exercise to view the different interpretations of the Farshim in it. It starts here on page 9, I think. Okay, page 9, source number 1 in the second section. Right, Moshe Rabbeinu is told to go to Kadosh Baruch Hu, V'matal Paro, Kol Amar Hashem, and Kadosh Baruch Hu declares, B'ni Bechori Yisrael. Am Yisrael is my firstborn son. Notice the translation here, and from whatever Chumash was taken. Thus says Hashem, Israel is my firstborn son. That's not Rashi. Take a look at Rashi. B'ni Bechori, Lishon Gidula. Or to translate Rashi, the term Bechor denotes high dignity, Af ani kmo, Rashi quotes a pasuk here as a proof text. Af ani b'chor et tneu, zeu pshuto. Why is Rashi doing this? What's bothering Rashi? What's bothering Rashi is something very clear and simple. If you say B'ni B'chori Yisrael, what does the metaphor of B'chor imply? It implies there's a family. You have 5 children. One is the firstborn, so he has certain privileges, but nevertheless, the others are members of the family. You have 5 children, all 5 belong to the same family. One of them gets additional privileges, but nevertheless, all 5 are members of the same family. Rashi, and that's the plain and simple understanding of the word Bechor. Rashi is bothered by that. He doesn't want to see Jews and Goyim belong to the same family. He believes that the difference is so qualitative, you can't talk about being members of the same family. So therefore, he reinterprets the pasuk. He goes and says that Bechor doesn't mean only a firstborn, with all the implications that I mentioned. It denotes high dignity. Because Rashi is trying to escape here from the implications of the plain and simple meaning. If we go down to Ibn Ezra says, Bechor means the first one to put into practice. Once more, it's not quite Rashi, but it's also an attempt to veer away from the plain and simple meaning. If you go to Chizkuni doesn't hesitate to draw the implications of the literal meaning. B'ni b'chor Yisrael, kol ha'umot banayim. All the nations are my children. And Yisrael chavivim lefanai. They're first among equals. Nevertheless, so they're first. Nevertheless, it's a family of equals. Look at Sforno now. Oh, well, we'll get on Sforno in a minute. Skip for a moment to Sforno and page 11. Just 1 second. Sforno page 11 is like this. Even though all mankind is precious, they're all created in the divine image. Ram, he quotes the Mishnah Perkevot, which we'll mention soon. Your Am Yisrael is more precious. What's worse is everyone is precious, everyone's important, but Am Yisrael has a greater degree of importance. And in the second quote, Havdel beinechem pachot v'yater, or to put it into our phrase, like in our language, it's quantitative. It's not qualitative, it's quantitative. Havdel beinechem pachot v'yater, ki umenam li kol haaretz, v'tem li machkani b'goy kadosh ki li kol haaretz. So he tells us to mean, since the entire land belongs to me and all its inhabitants. And therefore, everyone is important, and the difference is quantitative. And then he talks about the role of Am Yisrael to guide nations. I'll set that aside for the moment. Now, go back for a moment to page number 10. This pasuk is mentioned by some of the Farshim over there in Shemot. Pasuk Yeshayahu, source number 3. It's talking here about times of Mashiach apparently, and you're welcome to go and look up the whole chapter over there, which talks about Egypt and the whole prophecy about Egypt, and not for now. To be a threesome. There will be Yisrael, Mitzrayim, Ashur, Bracha, Bekerev, Haaretz. To be this trio of Mitzrayim, Ashur, and Am Yisrael as a group. Asher Bercho Hashem Tzvakot, the Kodesh Baruch will bless them with the following blessing. Baruch Ami Mitzrayim, my people Mitzrayim. Umasei Yadai Ashur, and Ashur, my created beings. V'nachlati Yisrael. So, yes.
Do you take questions on this? What's the context here? Why is he singling out?
The context like this. The context is, briefly, Yeshayahu is a whole prophecy there about Egypt, and how Egypt will be conquered by Ashur, because if you remember that towards the end of the first temple, Egypt and Ashur are battling each other, and basically for supremacy over, and Israel is like in between. It's no battle of Megiddo, that Egypt is trying to stop Ashur from spreading further west, and they battle them in someplace in northern Syria, Karkamish, and Ashur defeats Egypt. Egypt is subjugated and is defeated, and they're freely involved in Tanakh about the defeat of Egypt. And Yeshayahu then mentions, even though Egypt is defeated, but in the future, at the end of the days, everyone will be reconciled, there will be world peace. And not only will Egypt and Ashur not fight each other, Am Yisrael will be together. Will be a threesome. They'll join together. Everyone will join together in sign of world harmony. This is Bayom Hahu. Bayom Hahu Yashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. This is broadly speaking, but once we take a look there and.
So it's his Abraham cause, basically.
Sort of, yeah. I guess.
They were the superpowers of the day.
Right, exactly. It's certainly the regional superpowers, and since that region is the only region that Tanakh views, so they are the superpowers.
He's talking about Yom. Okay.
Okay, now we'll get back. At the moment, what I first want to illustrate here is that there are two approaches to Bichat Israel. One approach is more the quantitative one. And I mentioned the Rambam frequently before, right? The Rambam has very little to say about, you read the Mar Nevuchim, it addresses the needs of every human being. The Rambam is not necessarily addressing the Jewish experience. Right? The Rambam is not talking about a Jewish religious experience. He's talking about the universal experience, even to the point that the Rambam, when we talk about Shir HaShirim, which is a love story, and Rashi, of course, explains Shir HaShirim as the romance between Am Yisrael and the Kadosh Baruch Hu. The Rambam talks about it's the universal, it's the soul. It's the soul of man, any man striving to unite with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's not, his whole approach is much more universal. So you have one approach over here, which is best represented here by Sforno and Chizkuni, that it's the difference of a degree, like the Pachot V'yoter, basically the difference of degree, while the other approach, and Rashi is a good example, and we could take some of the halachic Rashis also to show that Rashi's opinion of Goyim was not too high, if I say it mildly. And so therefore Rashi, he purposely tries to evade the plain and simple implication of the pasuk, because he thinks that it has to be interpreted in line with basic, more basic approach, which he has throughout.
He says it's pshat.
What?
Zeh pshuta, Rashi says.
Yeah, because the Medrash has something different. He then quotes a Medrash afterwards, which I omitted for brevity. But the Medrash doesn't change the basic. It doesn't change the basic point. Right? On the reverse, right? He claims. Let me just, maybe I'll add a point over here. The Rambam will tell you that when it says Yad Hashem, it doesn't mean God's hand, it doesn't mean his body, it means, right, his power. Well, now, and he'll tell you that's the pshat. Meaning, now what does that mean? It means he thinks that this is the obvious meaning, though it's not the literal meaning. Right? The literal meaning is, you can say it means a hand, but this is what it really means. Now why? Because he has his axiomatic assumptions, his axiomatic theological assumptions, which force him to interpret this way. Rashi is the same thing. Rashi says, Zel pshuto, it's not the pshat if you're open to the idea that of the Sfarim and the Chizkuni. If you're not open to their idea, it's not pshat, because it goes against your basic axioms. So therefore, the pshat has to be bechor, meaning, and that's what it says, Zel pshuto. Okay, now we could discuss this more, but I want to go to another point, and then we'll go back to some of these psukim. let me quote for a moment a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, which Chizkuni mentioned over, the Sforno quoted. The Mishnah is like this: Chaviv Adam shenivra b'tselem, Chavivim Yisrael shenikru banim lamakom. Every human being is precious for the Kodesh Baruch Hu's eyes. They were all created in the divine image. Am Yisrael is Chaviv, is beloved, not only because they're called banim lamakom. The Psukim talk about B'ni Bechori Yisrael, Banim Atem LaHashem Elokechem, God's, your Kodesh Baruch Hu's children. So now I'd like to say the following. I believe that this is where, deep down, what the Kuzari meant. Kuzari has been often presented as being extremely anti-goyim, at Keikach, many people refuse even to entertain his ideas because he's presumed to be racist and anti-goyim. I believe he's trying to say something else, and deep down, I really think that his message is quite profound. I'll explain. Kuzari famously says that there's a qualitative difference between Am Yisrael and Goyim. He divides mankind into, he divides the universe really, right? There are objects, there are plants, animals, human beings, and Jews. And therefore he's often, and when he's asked, can a Goy become a Jew? He says, why don't you ask if a monkey can become a human being? And therefore, of course, there's a lot, especially post-Shoah, there's a lot of, I once a very prominent, very frum professor say that the Kuzari's theory is what Chazal say about the Matzeva, Ahuv la'avot, salila banim. That post the Shoah, you can only say that it may have been a tenable theory once upon a time, but nowadays it has to be utterly rejected because of its connotations. I think it means something else. The Kuzari, and this is his basic point throughout the entire work, Kuzari wants to base Avodat Hashem not upon reason, but upon relationships. Now, he's not, let me be clear, he's not an anti-rationalist. The Ramban is. The Ramban is an anti-rationalist, to the best of my understanding. The Kuzari, he believes that rationalism is important, true, but not sufficient. Or in his world, you need something which goes beyond that. Reason will give you natural religion. And he believes in this. He says explicitly, Goyim are obligated, it's expected of them to observe natural religion. But natural religion, in his opinion, is essentially part of the universe. And the universe has various elements, so God is one of those elements. However, what Avodat Hashem is all about is about relationships. Because Ha'inyan Eloki is the ability not to knowledge of God, but to relate. And with Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael not only supposed to have knowledge of the Kadosh Baruch Hu, is not only supposed to observe and obey natural religion, but it's also supposed to it enters into a relationship. Let me now try to illustrate this point. I have to treat every human being ethically and properly. However, my relatives, I don't treat only ethically. Well, let's take for example, like an ethical rule. My disani Allah v'chavecha lo tavi. Don't do unto others that which you hate. Right? V'havta l'recha kamocha, and so on. All of these things dictate various ethical behavior that I have to follow based upon these rules. But there's certain things I don't have to do. I'll give an example. I can't go and spill all my garbage on my neighbor's lawn. If my neighbor asks me to borrow a cup of sugar, I should give it to him. I have to treat him properly. I can't go and vandalize his property, and so on and so forth. Nevertheless, if my neighbor will come and say, you know what, I want to borrow your car for a week, or come pick me up from the airport at 2 a.m., So I say, with all due respect, you're only a neighbor, tough luck. I ain't going at 2 a.m. to the airport to pick you up. If my daughter will ask that, I'll be there 2 a.m., 4 a.m. And if my daughter wants to borrow the car, no matter how, someone once said, at least in Israel, what's a holech regel? What's the definition of holech regel? A pedestrian is someone whose daughter has a license, because you're constantly giving the car to your kids. And the reason you do that is it may interrupt with your plans, it may be disruptive, but you know that you want to express your love. It's not a question only of, is this morally expected? It's a question of, how do I express my love? How do I enter a relationship? And therefore, you bend over backwards and you do all kinds of things which are not, ethics don't dictate them, but relationships do. And therefore, because of relationships, so I'll go to a wedding of a cousin far out of town, but I won't go to a neighbor, and so on. We have various circles: immediate family, extended family, close friends, neighbors. But the basic point is that all of these things are not universal because they depend upon relationships. And therefore, I believe it's immoral for me to do to my family things I will not do for neighbors, and certainly not for strangers. However, ethics remain in force. As I said before, you can't damage basic human relationships. You're obligated to them. So, say if the neighbor knocks on the door for a cup of sugar, I think you're ethically obligated to give, etc. But above and beyond, you're not. And this is what I call relationships. Now, this I think is what Yehuda Levi is trying to say about Am Yisrael. What he's trying to say is that Am Yisrael is into relationship with Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's not only that because He created all of us. It's rather, and now there are various theories. Let's go back maybe for a moment to Sforno. You take in page 10, to quote you from the Sforno, towards the end, the bottom 2 lines of the quote, bottom 2 lines in Hebrew, in English, it's the bottom 3 lines. Because Am Yisrael remains committed to serving Kadosh Baruch Hu, even when the Goyim went astray. So the Sforno, now this is a theory you can find in many different places. This is one of a comment which I didn't put down over here, but which is very important for this, but it requires a very...
we're a bit lost as to which...
What?
We're a bit lost.
Page 10, source number 1. Well, it's a...
One right top.
It's now, there's a hot discussion about a comment, but it's complicated, so I won't get into the details. But I will say the following. The Gemara says that certain privileges were denied to Goyim because they didn't live up to expectations. They were given 7 mitzvot, and they were unable to commit to them. They didn't perform them, they neglected them. It's because of that they were penalized, they lost certain privileges. Now, this is a common presentation, that Goyim were, even if you come and say qualitatively Goyim and Jews are equal, and all of them are human, but the Goyim, they did not realize their potential, their spiritual and their human potential was not realized, therefore they forfeited their rights. That's, it's for here in that second half. It's a common theme in many other sources. However, this is not what I'm saying. I'm saying something different. That Goyim have a universal relationship with Kadosh Baruch Hu, and they're obligated to Him. In Am Yisrael, there's a relationship. This relationship is, first of all, Jews to other Jews. The Kuzari talks about the man-God relationship. Let's even put that aside. Let's talk for a moment now about the man-man, or the Jew-Jew relationship. And here, I'll go back to the story of Ribit. Ribit, you can demand from a Goy, you cannot demand from a Jew. You have to give a Jew an industry loan, you have to forgive the debts every 7 years, and so on and so forth. What is the logic behind this? So I think the logic is relationships. Let me quote, this is not in the source sheet, let me quote a passage from the Ramban. Right, the Torah says you can't take interest from a Jew. It says the Ramban as follows, Ubi'er bekan, the Torah told us over here, it's permissible to take usury from a goy. It's usher to steal from a goy, but you want to take interest. So comments to Ramban, why? Because stealing, theft, is a moral issue. The ribit is an agreement you enter into with someone, right? Ribit, you agree, he consents to begin with. Now, in the Middle Ages, this is a whole debate, and there are halachic elements to this as well. The Ramban here is choosing a particular interpretation, but in my personal opinion, quite a convincing one. The Ramban is assuming here that ribit is not morally flawed, for a simple reason. If I can tomorrow morning decide to open a business, car rental. I can rent cars. Everyone feels there's nothing morally wrong with that. I have a car, you want to use it, so you rent it. So pay me 20 pounds, 30 pounds a day, whatever, to rent it. I own a house, you want to rent my house? So pay rent. You want to rent a tuxedo for an evening, so pay rent. So the same is true with money. If you want to use money, pay rent. If you want to use my apartment or my flat for a month, so pay £1,000. You want to use my money for a month, so pay the going rate also. In other words, all you're doing by interest is really renting out the use of the money. You return it plus the rent. So it's morally, and he agrees. You don't do this, you don't force it, no one's coerced. Why is the Torah then prohibited? Because the Torah is an assumption, and this is, you can see in many sources, the Torah is an assumption. The Torah doesn't talk about commercial credit. The Torah doesn't talk about a multinational company taking a credit line of $100 million. The Torah talks about loans in the Torah always for a person who's struggling to make ends meet. Person has to pay his bills at the local grocery. That's in the Torah. It's in kesef talvet ami et ani imach. If you loan money to the poor person who needs the money to pay his groceries. And because of that, so the Torah is like this. Who's loaning this money? A person who's poor, the interest, as we all know, can crush you. And the moment you take a loan and take a mortgage, and you've been paying the interest as well, eventually will crush you. You have money to begin with. If you had money, you would take the loan. So you have money to begin with. Now you have to pay an additional sum of quote-unquote renting the money. So you'll be crushed. So therefore the Torah demands compassion, chesed. Chesed demands that you nevertheless don't take what you can take. You deserve to take, you don't take it. It's even more true about Shmitat Ksafim. Is there a moral obligation to forgive a debt for every 7 years? Of course not. Why, nevertheless, is the Torah demand? For the same reason. People taking loans, it's like they went from a gemach to another, from one gemach to another gemach, because you need the second gemach to pay off the debt of the first one, then you go to the third to pay off the debt of the second. You're constantly chasing, you're buried under a mountain of debt. So the Torah, Kimilut Chasadim, decides to forgive the debt, which is why we have no hesitation if we can solve the halachic issue of I read a principle every 7 years. I don't have a principle for neighbors who took money. I actually once had a neighbor who took some money. It was not a large sum, in the financial columns, but for between two neighbors, it wasn't a large sum. He took a loan because he literally he needed it to pay his bills. And when Shvitas Ksafim came, I wrote a principle because I didn't want to give the bank a windfall. I don't think I have to give Bank Mizrahi, Bank Poalim a windfall. So there's a halachic mechanism to solve it. The Torah doesn't design it. But for the individual, I forgive him. He came back and he wanted to pay it years later. I forgave him. I said, no, because the Torah's values are, you deserve it monetarily, but chesed requires not to collect such a debt. And now the Ramban says, this is true about achicha, but not about stam person, but strangers, no. Because I said before, if my brother will take money from me, I will also absolve him much more readily, or I'll loan to my brother even though I know he can't return the money. But maybe I won't loan to a stranger when I know he won't return it. In other words, you treat your brothers differently. Now, if Kol Yisrael Achim Zelazeh, everyone is a family, it's one large extended family, so then it's toward everybody. There's a very nice story in Eretz Yisrael a few years ago that certain groups were opposed to doing gerus without Kabbalas mitzvos. This is not my topic now, but I just want to illustrate the story. And Rav Druckman, who was pro-gerus, lenient gerus, so then they discovered that there's a famous Rosh Hashanah in Bnei Brak who had a relative, they were Megayah with a relative because of the circumstances, even though the gerus was quite imperfect. So they said, what do you want from Rav Druckman? He's doing the same thing. Said, oh, what do you want? It was his brother involved. So they said, okay, so what's the difference between you? That you treat only your biological brother as a brother. He treats all of Am Yisrael as his brothers. So the same concern you have for your immediate family, he has for all of Am Yisrael. So in a sense, you view, but this is the idea of the mitzvah. You view all of Am Yisrael as family. And because it's family, it's a relation to get to conclude with the Shabbos Aveda. What is the Shabbos Aveda? So the Meiri says the same point. The Meiri says that why do you not return an Aveda to a goy? Because in theory, the moment you lose possession, you forfeit ownership. That hamitzia miktzat kinyan. The person takes possession of an object which has been lost, so he has, properly speaking, it's his ownership. Only chazarato midat chasidut. It's chesed supposed to do. So now the Torah tells us, for people who are your brothers, you're obligated to do chesed. For others, it's a kiddush Hashem to do it. It's advisable, but it's not. And same, but the Gemara says in Bamitzia that Tehillim praises someone kaspol natan ben neshech. The Gemara says not even to a goy. What's saying is, to a Jew, you're obligated. The Torah obligates you to do chesed to a Jew. There are family relationships which dictate a certain norm. For a guy, it's commendable. It's a mile, so to speak, but it is not. It's not incumbent. Now, therefore, I think if we go back to let's go back quickly to the sources we saw before. Let's look at the pasuk in Yeshayahu again. Baruch Ami Mitzrayim Aseh Yashuv v'Nachlati Yisrael. I'm not sure, but it may be that Nachala is a stronger phrase, meaning because Baruch views Mitzrayim and Ashur as being created by him, the Am Yisrael is his unique possession. I think Nachala is a stronger phrase. I'm not 100% certain about that. Now the Sforno now introduces another idea. Let's go back to the same place there on page 10. Let's go back to the Sforno again. Or before the Sforno, I'll quote the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot again that he quotes on 11. Chaviv Adam shenivra b'tselem, Chavivim Yisrael shenikru banim lamakom. So like this, all of humankind is created b'tselem Elokim, the divine image, and therefore you have to treat them properly. But Chaviv Yisrael the banim, what does that mean? There's a relationship. In other words, to all of mankind, they're God's subjects. He's the master. All of them are created in the divine image. But Am Yisrael has an additional relationship, banim. This is what the Sforno says. Now, Sforno adds over here. I'm going back to page 10, the top of the page. Yichashem Yisrael nichbad mikulam ba'asher hu b'ni oved kom ben me'aval u'ke'ev me'avat tzachar yat onesh. Right, in the English, he serves out of love and not out of desire of reward and punishment. But I don't think you have to talk about reward and punishment. I think you could also add differently. There are two basic relationships between man and God. There's the relationship of yirah, I don't mean here yirat, fear of reward and punishment. I mean about awe. What it's called yirat kavod. You're in awe of God. Then there's ahava. We talk about yirah and ahava, two basic religious emotions. When you relate to awe, when you talk about how God is transcendental and great and unique, where you take the perspective of Yeshayahu, and that we read in Haftarah Parshas Nachamu, if everyone is a drop in the bucket, if everyone is insignificant and trivial, vis-a-vis Kadosh Baruch Hu, that's true of everybody, Jew, non-Jew. All of us are totally trivial and totally insignificant related to Kadosh Baruch Hu from the perspective of this transcendental greatness. When you talk though about ahava, which talks about the close relationship, there it's easy to differentiate. There you come and say, ahava is not equal. Ahava you can talk about, as I said before, I'm closer to my children than to my cousins. I'm closer to my cousins than to distant relatives, than to strangers. So here, this is what Sforno was saying. Am Yisrael has a relationship, if you look from the perspective of ahava, so Jews have a relationship which is unique. If you look from the perspective of yirah, it's universal. Okay, now, having said all this, and time for me, we could have added more, let's now just conclude with what's the upshot of all of this. Okay, 5-10 more minutes. Okay, you'll forgive me. It's unethical to go over time, but
no, it's not.
You'll do midat ahava. So midat ahava, I once so I'll tell a quick story. I was once asked to speak in the United States in Yerushalayim. Rav Mital did for a few years, and he decided he wanted to stop. So I was sent to Pin Shifra of Mital. So I went to Rav Mital. I said to him, "Give me a tip, like what? Give me some tips. What are the expectations?" So Big Rav Mital said to me, "Doesn't matter what you say. Haikal sheyeh katzar. As long as keep it short." Fine. So I said, "How much? 10, 15 minutes." Then I come to the United States. I speak to the person organizing the event. So how long should I speak to this? Well, brought you in specially from Israel. At least 50 minutes, at least. So okay, you brought me in, so I will follow her dictate and not Rav Mital. Now, what's the upshot of all of this? Upshot of all this, number one, of course, there's an ethical obligation to everybody. As we begin, Sefer Yonah, and all the sources we quoted in the beginning, the Rambam categorizes this under a category which he calls Darkei Shalom. It's a famous Rambam, and he utilizes the psukim that I dwelled upon before in Ashley. Is it here? When? Page 5?
That's just page 4.
The Rambam's at the bottom of page 11.
Here it is, page 4, yeah. Actually, transition 4 to 5, okay. If Ram talks about the obligation to treat ethically all human beings, and to do chesed. It's halfway through. Even goyim who worship with the Zohar, in the Rambam's book, that's horrible. You have to do gemilut chesed, not just treat them, but not damage them, or not steal from them. And to support the anim, to do tzedakah, to visit cholim, all classic gemilut chesed, or which is v'ahavta recha kamocha in the Rambam's book. Mipnei darkei shalom. The phrase taken from the Gemara. And the Gemara darkei shalom is very functional utilitarian. Darkei Shalom means there should be you should fight in society, that there should be a pogrom or whatever. And the Rambam gives an ethical meaning. Tov Hashem lakol. Darkei Shalom means the proper way of treating human beings, ethically. Path Shalom here means treat all human beings properly, with compassion and with chesed. So this is, of course, number one. Take a look also, some striking sources towards the end. Without going to all of them, the Torah tells me, we quoted this before, right? The Torah says, "Mechaseni mi Avraham," right? Will I conceal from Avram my plan for Sodom? And Avram des chesed tzedakah mishpat. So the Ramban, look over here on page 8. So the Ramban says as follows. So let's for a moment look at the Rashbam first, the top of page 8. The Rashbam says, why is Baruch Hu obligated to notify Avraham? Not because he cares about the Goyim, because he cares about the land. The land belongs to Avram. Avram's the landlord. He will eventually inherit the land. So, look at the last line of the Rashbam. Eich achriv karka shelo. Or karka shelo shlo midato. How can I destroy his land? That's very there's nothing there. He cares about the Goyim. It's all Avram Avinu's real estate. I can't destroy Sodom. And of course, Sodom this very day is desolate and barren. So he really destroyed it. But the Ramban says, Hinei hu atid liyot legoy gadol v'atzum. Avram be a nation. V'yez zichro, and everyone will know him. Ki yamra dor tabaim. If Avram is not notified, what will everyone say? How in the world didn't he plead? He had no compassion. He didn't care about his neighbors. He wasn't willing to care for them. Eich nitachzer tzaddik. How could such a tzaddik be so cruel and totally apathetic to the fate of his neighbors? How can everyone have no mercy upon all of them? So it's expected. It's obviously. So the need to treat people ethically is clear. Something we said before. The human, all of them belong. You have to treat human beings compassionately. There are, however, certain elements which are unique to relationships. I think you have to divide here between things which belong to the welfare of society, treating people as people properly, caring for them, for their needs as being created in the divine image, for their humanity, for their suffering, for their needs. What's unique in terms of relationships, that is unique to Jews. But what is universal is, I think you're obligated to Goyim as well. This obligation, there's a dual obligation over here. Obligation number, and now, it's like this. One obligation is simply, because Baruch Hu why is Baruch Hu obligated to the world? He's responsible, he created the world, he's quote unquote responsible. Chazal tell us that Baruch Hu's task is to help Anim. Why? He created the world, he created poverty, it's his responsibility to help them cope with it. Chazal tell us that a human being who helps, gives tzedakah, he's doing God's work, he's substituting for Kadosh Baruch Hu, because Kadosh Baruch Hu should have been doing this, kaviyachol. At any rate, now man also has responsibility for society. Why is this so? For two reasons. Number one, out of compassion. You have to have a part of being human is having compassion, is being a feeling being. Human beings have emotions, what defines us. Morality is the basic definition of being a human being. An immoral person is lacking as being a person. His humanity is lacking, and compassion is a basic element of being a human being. So you need compassion. And it's a basic religious value, because we said before, Valachta bidrachav. This is part of your devotion to Kadosh Baruch Hu, that you want to imitate him, you want to follow in his footsteps and his path, you want to emulate him. That's number two. Number three, though, is you're a member of society and you have a responsibility. And here, I get to the final point. or the next defining point actually, we have a dual identity. One is as human beings. Because we're created as human beings. We were all created as human beings. We became Jews by Avram Avinu. And later on, by Mamad Har Sinai. We became Jews later on. We're first of all human beings. And and in many areas, we remain human beings. Monetary dealings, you are a human being, not a Jew. Your business you do as a human being. And we are obligated to society as members of society because we are humans just like them. And we have a fellowship, so to speak, with all people and all members of society because the commonality of being human beings and being members all of us are humans who belong to the same society, and we have a responsibility and to take responsibility for that society. Additionally, we also are Jews, and for that you have responsibility towards Jewish society, or Jewish brotherhood, really, I should say. So you have a due responsibility. Now, I put down here a long quote from the Rav, but that's essentially what he's saying. What he's saying is that man, or every Jew, is both a man and a Jew. As a man, he's obligated to society. You can talk about its moral, the mutuality of it. To give an example, right? You cannot expect not to donate organs, but to receive organs. If you're a member of society, so either you reject the whole idea or you accept it, but it has to be mutual. You pay taxes, and so on and so forth. Additionally, you also a member of a Jewish brotherhood, and that creates additional obligations. And therefore, it's essential that you have to be ethical as a human being, and that's your humanity. You also have to be ethical. You also have to be part of Jewish self-responsibility. And I said before, you also have to be ethical out of a religious obligation of Halacha b'drachav, which is independent of your being a member of society. You have to be ethical because you're also human, but you're also a member of society, and creates responsibility. Now, and this is the final point, the real question here really is, the real problem is not so much are you obligated to help others. To me, it's self-evident. The real problem practically always is prioritization. And always, to put it differently, my triage, how do you prioritize conflicting needs? Your obligation to society and your universal membership and your Jewish needs. But the answer here is, there's no simple answer. Each case you have to factor in, it's the following, you have to factor in how dire are the needs. You have to factor in, are there other agencies involved or not? You have to ask yourself as well, what are the resources, how much resources do I have? How much I integrate into society or not? I think there's no doubt that in certain cases, the need for self-survival and to prioritize Jewish needs is great. And Goy, Baruch Hashem, plenty of resources, and the host country has a lot of resources. In other societies, I think the equation is very different. You cannot compare, for instance, the United States and South Africa. And I think that the issues in South Africa require much more being engaged with the state of the Goyim, who are much worse off. And the United States, it depends where. But so you have to also ask, how much resources do you have? What are the needs available? What are we talking about in terms of exactly what are the needs? And so on and so forth. Basically, Chod Tzedakah always boil down to prioritization, and there's no exact formula for that. You really have to work things out on a case-by-case basis. The basic idea that there's a dual obligation, and that then simply the question is how to balance the dual obligation. That to me seems quite clear, and these are the sources that I presented you trying to show that. Todat Rabban, thank you for your patience.